I'm Karen from I Felt It, and I'm going to show you how I make my needle felted carrots. This is actually take 3. I have 2 small dogs that went berserk twice, and so I'm going to try to go a little faster and see if I can get through this thing. So these are some that I have done before, and I have learned some things as I've gone, so I'll try to point those out to you. So I start out with my wool, and this is kind of a wheat color, and then a dark brown. You really only need a tiny bit of that. Then this is a pumpkin colored MC1 bats. This is an MC1 bats, and I don't know the color. And then these are just some various colors of green. And these are my 2 attempts from when I was trying to do take 1 and take 2, and my dogs went crazy. I like MC1 bats because the fibers are crossed instead of all going the same way. I did experiment and use a roving, and that's what this one looked like. This obviously needs to be poked down more, but I just didn't like the finish of that, so for me this is what works. And then wire, I experimented with 3 different gauges, and this is the 14 gauge I think, and that was way too stiff. And I don't know what this is, but yeah, maybe a 28 or something like that. And then I think this is a 30, and this is a really thin gauge, and I just got this at Joann Fabrics, and I have about a 10-inch piece here. And so what I'm going to do is take my wool, and I'm just going to tear up pieces of take 1 and take 2, but I would just go all along, pulling off bits and trying to go the length of that needle. And you don't go on top of it yet until you kind of get the size you want. And then I start widening that out a bit, because the top part will be the leaf. And I just like the mixture of colors. You could try to do something that's more realistic, but to me this works. This is a cloth covered needle, by the way, and that really helps to get this felting process started, or a cloth covered wire, excuse me. So then, holding that wire in place, I just go back and forth trying to grab wool from each side of the wire and just poking that back and forth. You don't really have to worry too much about that wire. It's such a fine gauge. I doubt that you would break your needle by poking into it. Go back and forth from both sides to just try to keep that wire in the center. You can pull it out a little bit there. It was getting too bunched up. There's probably about 1.5 inches or 2 inches at the end that I'm not worrying about covering, and that's actually going to be part of the carrot, so you don't have to worry about getting all that covered. Be sure this is the needle I'm using right now is a 40 spiral, and I feel like that's got a strong enough tip that I can go back and forth without being too concerned about breaking the tip of the needle. Peel that up off of your surface, because you don't want that gets so embedded into the wool that you don't want that. You just want to peel it up periodically and just keep going back and forth, just dragging that wool from one side to the other. You can see I've got a really thin spot there, so then I just lay some more wool on that, and it's really not particular at all. You don't have to be concerned about it looking just right, because in the end it just all starts to look right. It doesn't matter if it's more green in one spot or darker green in another spot. That doesn't matter. Anyway, you keep going until you get that excuse me, covered pretty well. And then I actually go in with, and I have to look, it's the 42 triangle. This is actually my favorite needle. It's the one I use almost all the time. And you can see this needle has a little grip on it that my husband made for me, and this one doesn't, but that's just because I'm too lazy to put that little thing on there. I actually don't mind holding the needle like this. A lot of people say you shouldn't because it's going to cause problems, but I feel like I have better control, so that's why I do it. Anyway, just keep going back and forth until you get that pretty good. This should get better. I'm not going to take the time to make it better right now, but I'm going to show you. Probably, I mean, you want it pretty firm. You want it something like that. So what you're working on is the stem, and now you want to start on that leaf. So it's already, the wire's already in there. It doesn't have to go all the way to the top. I'm not too concerned about that. So I'm just going to put pieces of wool right over the top of that wire, and then I'm going to take that punch tool and just start poking. And it goes right over that, it really goes right over that wire. I've never broken a needle like this, and I don't think you would with such a fine gauge wire in there. Be sure you peel it up and go back and forth. Do it on both sides, kind of pull that edge in, because I don't want it to be too fringed. I'm a really tight needle felter. When I make my pillows, I really felt tightly, but so I kind of had to like tell myself it was okay not to felt so tightly for this, because I don't think it needs to be. I think it's a look that's good like that. Anyway, keep folding those edges in. You can see there's some vegetable matter in this, like there is all the time in wool. This is the one time I don't pick it out. I usually don't like that in my wool. Keep going back and forth. Try to get that edge a little bit more firm than what I have. What you kind of want it to look like is something like that. So about 1.5 inches or 2 inches are left. The edges are fairly firm. I'm not really worried about getting that very tight. And I'm done with my green, and I'm going to take my orange, and I don't actually need that much of that one. Whatever that, I don't know if that's 12 inches or something like that, but it depends on the size carrot you're making. So I just take my dowel, and I actually think this is a knitting needle, and hold it up against the wire, and part of it is going to get covered here. I just remembered I did this other little trick that I thought was helpful for me. I kind of want it one edge tight. So I just fold that over, try to get it tight, and you might find it best to roll it until you get it started, but once I can, I like to pick it up and pull on the wool, because that actually really makes it so much tighter to start with. A lot less felting if you can get the air out of that right away. And it's not even quite as tight as I would like it, but I'm just going to try to keep pulling tight. I'm rushing a little bit because I know my dogs are going to go crazy before too long. When you get to the tip, you don't want that as bulky, so kind of just cross over and just pull it. Like I said, just pull it as tight as you can, because it really does make a difference with your felting. So that's pretty good. That's kind of what you want it to look like. And then I take this, I think it's pumpkin, and you don't need a ton of that, but that actually is, to me, makes it look, whoops, a little bit like it just came out of the garden. Kind of a dirty carrot. So kind of wrap that around and then just poke that in place. It doesn't have to cover it completely, because it wouldn't in real life. But anyway, it's already looking cool. So just poke that a little bit. Be careful, because for a little bit I still have that dowel in there. And then pull it out. And you can see it's already pretty firm, and it's already starting to look like a carrot. So then you can just poke in there and get it going. And I actually will even switch to this for a little bit. Again, there's just that tiny piece of wire in there, and I probably wouldn't even reach it now. So after that's fairly firm, then I want to start shaping that top. And so I'm going to try to felt at a different angle. But what I'm doing is trying to poke down those fibers, and I'm kind of rolling that carrot because I really want that wire to be in the middle of the carrot. And so just poke the fibers down and just keep going all around till you till most of those loose fibers are all tucked inside and the wire is in the center. And that just takes a minute. I mean, it obviously I'm poking off to this side part of this time. Then I like to switch back to my favorite needle and I just try to shape that a little bit because you kind of want that to be more of a rounded edge on the top. But then we're gonna change that center a bit too after we round that top off. Anyway, you're gonna keep poking and you're gonna shape it. You can actually pull it. You can make a long skinny carrot, or you could make it, I mean, you can just change the size depending on how much wool you put on it. I did forget to do this. I was going to show you that I actually did a carrot where I just had 2 leaves in it. And so I would have done the same thing. I just would have put those 2 leaves together and then wrapped the orange around it. But I'm fine with just 1 leaf, although I know that that's not actually the way they look. I'm fine with it. So keep poking until you have it looking more like this. And there are places here where I have to go and fix that wire, but I'm not sure I'll do that just right now. I like to let that wool come off of there a little bit. I think it's kind of fun to have, it starts almost to look like a root, and that's where I use a little bit of another color too. I think that I actually saw somebody else doing, I didn't see her doing it. I saw a picture of her carrot, and she actually did really long, nice white ones. I don't quite know how she did it, but I thought it looked pretty cool. So anyway, fine tune that. You can really roll that in your fingers. That MC1 batting is such a nice fiber that it just gets really, it felts onto itself. This other fiber is something different. Anyway, that's kind of a cool tip. So then, but you're going to fix that top, and I like this green the green needle. I almost said green noodle, and it's a 40 triangle, and it really makes deep holes. And so just going slowly, I really just try to poke that all down in there, and that wire's not quite covered. So I got to fix that a bit so you get a better idea. I poke forever. I'm kind of a little bit of almost OCD with needle felting sometimes, but I enjoy it, so I don't care. I'm retired, so I have lots of time to play. So I just poke forever. I've got a great spot where I can sit and look outside, and I'm usually listening to good music, and lots of times I have a glass of wine. So I'm making my husband film this, so he's listening to me blather on. Anyway, you just keep going around like that till you get that in there pretty nice. And then I just take a little bit of dark brown and I poke that in there because I just think it makes it look a little bit more realistic. I don't like the fibers to be too loose on there. And go all the way around. You want to make sure that stem stays in the center. And really, I got to fix this a little bit. That's too exposed. You just have to bring the fibers from one side to the other and just poke it. And eventually it does get poked. It does get covered. And it really doesn't take that long. So that's kind of what, this isn't even in there as much as it should be. I don't want those fibers poking out loosely. It looks a lot nicer if I'm going to poke a bit, and then I'll just show it to you, Bill. It's easier when I can do it from my angle. Anyway, just keep poking until it's like something like that. And then I'd like to actually take a needle and kind of start squishing it and compressing it. When I poke, I almost poke down into it. You can poke at an angle as long as you keep the needle straight. If you bend the needle, you're going to break it. But I'm just at an angle and the needle is mostly staying straight. I really rarely break needles, but I have extra here just in case, because I do, of course. So as I'm pressing this, I'm kind of pushing against onto my mat, and so it's just compressing all of that, and then that starts to actually shape the carrot as you go. And so I think you can just do that in a million ways. I don't think you could make it look wrong. There's so many fun shapes you could make with the carrot. I actually think it would be fun to make like a double one or a purple carrot, but I haven't done that yet. Although I have made about 10 carrots, so I probably should move on. Then I go back to my green needle, and I just try to poke in some lines. And I'm going to go over all of this with my yellow needle yet, but because I want it to be smooth, but I want to poke some lines, and I've just put a little bit of that really dark brown in there just to kind of make it look like dirt, I guess, is what I'm trying for. And I probably really should have looked at a carrot before I did all of this, but I just am making a carrot from what I think a carrot looks like. So I think they're only part way around and uneven, and anyway, that's how I'm doing it. So then just keep adding as many as you want. I generally don't add a lot, and I probably should look at a carrot sometime, and I might change my mind about how I make these. So then I just go back with my favorite needle, and I just try to make that surface just all a little bit more smooth. And I do want this a little bit more tightly felted. To me, there's too many loose fibers, but it looks a lot like a carrot to me already. And then we're going to do the top part, and that's fun and probably looks way less like a carrot. I know that is actually not at all like a carrot top, but I think it's cute. I think it's cute. So anyway, that's kind of what my carrot looks like, and I love it. I think that's super cute. So then that's the top, and I want to take scissors, and I just cut little slits in it. And I don't know, is that about a half an inch or something? Again, everything depends on how big you make it. And just go all the way around. And this is nothing, really it's nothing like a carrot at all. But like I said, I think it's still cute. So then I just find one of those, and I poke that one in, and then I leave the next one, and I just kind of poke it in kind of loosely. And if I don't do every other, you know, I'm not, like, that's not a really big deal, but I do something like that. And then I turn it over, and then I kind of go the other way with the other ones. And again, if it doesn't like really flip over, I don't force it to. It's not like it has to be every other or anything like that. That's not really that important. Anyway, it's almost kind of starts to give it a ruffled look. And then you can just poke some more with this. It's like it's so different from the needle felting I normally do. The pillows I make, I'm so precise and slow, and every fiber is exactly in place, that this feels so different. But I realize there are different kinds of needle felting, and this is a really fun, creative process. Anyway, just poke until you are happy with it, and I just think it just makes a super cute carrot, and really easy, and like a whimsical, realistic carrot. So I hope you enjoyed it. That's it. If you've got questions, let me know and I will be happy to help. Bye.